Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey guys, welcome to the new episode of the New Warehouse Podcast. This week, I'm actually joined by Fergal Glynn, who is the VP of Marketing for Six River Systems. Six River Systems provides robotics and automation solutions to the manufacturing distribution industries, and we're going to talk to Fergal a little bit about his background, about Six River Systems. We're going to talk about their robotic solution, their automation solutions, and we're going to talk a little bit more about technology and kind of where he sees, and I guess Six River sees, the future of the industry going. So Fergal, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Kevin, thanks very much for having me, and doing really good today.
Good to hear. I'm happy that we could catch up. Actually, for the listeners, Fergal and I were supposed to connect at ProMat, and if you guys aren't familiar, I had the whole series on ProMat, but I think Fergal had an emergency presentation he had to give. He had to fill in for somebody, so we missed some time there. So I'm happy we could catch up now. So Fergal, why don't you tell me, I guess, a little bit about yourself and how you got into the robotics and automation world. I know that you have, it looked like you have some of a software engineering background. So how did you end up in this industry?
Yeah, Kevin, this is going to be a fun one to talk about. So I was a computer engineer. I was writing C++ code at the beginning of my career, and I was working at Fidelity Investments. I was fortunate enough that one of the projects that I was working on there got spun out into a software startup. And for the last almost 15 years now, I've been working with early stage technology companies. And I'm in the Boston area. And so we're fortunate here that it has become a hub for a few different categories of technology. But very recently, one of those being around robotics in logistics.
Yeah, I noticed that at ProMat, like so many of the robotic companies are based out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, Kevin, so there's this kind of saying that I've heard about these companies, kind of the life cycle here, the supply chain, that oftentimes it's West Coast venture capital money given to East Coast robotic firms to build technology that's used in warehouses in the Midwest. So it spans pretty much the entire country.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so you got into robotics through the software engineering and then kind of being in the area. So what really,
Sorry, Kevin,
it drew you into the robotics side of things, from going from computer engineering and software engineering?
Yeah, so starting out as a programmer, during my career, I transitioned first to product management and then to marketing. And the folks, Jerome, Chris, and Rylan, had set up Six River Systems in 2015. And we received a seed round of funding and then a Series A funding. But then late in 2017, the business was going well, and there was other venture capital firms looking to invest more, which allowed the business to expand the go-to-market team. Okay. So we used that to put additional fuel into the go-to-market function of the company, whereas up to that point we had invested primarily, and rightly so, in building our initial products. And once we had a few sites under our belt, then like we saw and had confidence in the company that there was this great market fit to the product that we were building and the vision that we had for future products. So I was fortunate enough to meet Chris, Jerome, and Rylan while they were thinking about expanding the go-to-market team. And it was kind of the robot that got my attention first, in like who wouldn't want to work with robots. But what really kind of drew me into this company is just our bigger vision that it's not just robots, but there's hardware and software working together to be able to deliver solutions that provide immediate and lasting value to our customers.
Got it. Very interesting. So, like you said, there's so much behind the scenes too that I guess are driving these robots and providing the solutions. So for Six Rivers, why don't you tell us a little bit about Six Rivers and I guess, what the specialization is that you guys are in. I know you have some collaborative robotic solutions. So why don't you tell the audience, I guess, about Six Rivers and what you guys really concentrate on?
I would love to, Kevin. So we're building a new way of fulfillment and warehouse automation. And this new way is powered by our collaborative robot. We call it Chuck, after the Charles River in Boston. But also it's powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning. And most of our AI, it's in the cloud. So with our way of delivering solutions to customers, they don't need to bring in machines or servers into their warehouse or into their company. You just bring the Chuck, the robot, into your warehouse, and it talks over the air to the cloud.
Oh wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So our first product is Chuck. It's a robot that helps associates with picking in each picking operation. So if you're picking, for example, items for e-commerce or picking small parts for B2B distribution or maybe service parts, it could be in manufacturing, could be maintenance of aerospace equipment, could be maintenance of auto vehicles. But think about any small item that needs to be individually picked from a shelf. And our software and our Chuck, the robot, can help with that. Okay,
interesting. So it's not necessarily a robot, it's more of a cobot, right? I think that's the hot term, right?
It is, yeah. That's the collaborative robot, cobot.
Yes, yeah.
And so with a cobot, it needs a person to work with it for the task of picking the item off the shelf. So cobots, they're able to, like a conveyor belt, a cobot is able to autonomously move boxes or products around the building. With cobots supplemented by artificial intelligence, it's able to reduce the pick path so that there's less walking for the associate when they're with the cobot. And then the way we've built our cobot is it follows a directed workflow. And by directed, I mean the associate will follow the robot. And we believe that's the best way to build a picking robot that works alongside a person, because the robot will set the pace. Like the robot decides how fast to go. The robot won't stop for breaks.
Yeah.
And so it speeds up all the different steps that are involved in the actual pick.
Interesting. So I guess instead of the robot coming to the robot's kind of directing the employee where to go with it?
Yeah. So think about kind of a pick and pass zone operation, right? So you've got your people in different zones. The robots go in to where the people are. Then the robot will work with the person for a few minutes, complete the work that needs to be done in that zone. And then that robot will move to a different zone in the warehouse. It could be a different zone for picking, or it could be a takeoff area. And your workers will stay in the active picking area. And as demand throughout the building changes from hour to hour or day to day, our system manages all that so that your equipment and your people are brought to the areas where the work needs to take place.
Very interesting. I like that. That's really smart. So that's the AI kind of working, right? So it's learning where to be in where the best place to be is in the operation, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Interesting. So you said that the truck, it's based off a cloud system. So what's the implementation of that? I mean, I imagine it's relatively simple at that point then, right?
Yeah, and so it is relatively simple. So the implementation, we are currently deploying new customers, and it's just taking 1 week from when the robots arrive to the warehouse in a box to the first pick actually taking place in the building. And that's unheard of in material handling. With traditional material. Yeah, like you could hear, oftentimes you hear of it takes 12 weeks to just respond to an RFI. But we've got one use case that we point to, one case study that we point to. It was our first Canadian customer. And from the first phone call that they made to us to the first pick going live in their warehouse in the Toronto area, it took just 12 weeks. And that included getting robots through customs. That included all the negotiations about the deal. That included organizing the financing. So it's like really sped up how you can think about a material handling or a warehouse project.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome because, I think a lot of people, some people are still kind of getting used to the idea of robotics in general being in the workplace. And, I think, sometimes when you think about technology like that, you may think, oh my God, that's going to be like a total disruption to the operation. It's going to take, all this time to implement and put together. But it sounds like, it's faster than some of the solutions that we've been using in the past. And I mean, it sounds like what you're saying before is it's kind of taking the place of some conveyors, and conveyor implementation that can take a long time, and that can really disrupt your operation too. So hearing that, from the time it gets there to the time it's really making that first pick is 1 week. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, and just to give us a small few extra details about how that's possible. So when a robot is brought into the building, the very first one we will manually, with a joystick, drive it around the place, and it's creating a map of the existing warehouse. So it sees all your racking, it sees all the different static objects that you have around the place. So we create that map. That map is uploaded to the cloud. So now any other future robots that come into that building, they can download the map and they're able to get out working in the warehouse floor right away.
Interesting. So one just kind of goes in, takes care of the hard work, and then passes that on to the other ones.
Yes, that's the beauty of the difference to a conveyor belt, where you have one, say, fixed piece of equipment, albeit it could be a very long piece of equipment that's all tied together. Now, when you think about collaborative robots, you can think about them as almost like mini services, mini pieces of equipment. And one other great thing about thinking about infrastructure like that is that if one, for example, just say one robot goes down, that doesn't impact at all the rest of your robots in the building. So it might have a small impact on the time it takes to do a pick, but it doesn't shut down an entire building, such as if you had, if there was a motor in a critical area of a conveyor, if that goes down, that could shut down an entire building. But if you start breaking automation down into smaller and smaller components, well, then with it, you get a lot of redundancy as well.
Definitely, yeah. I've been in operations where there's been, a couple miles of conveyor, and one one broken belt can shut down the operation for a huge amount of time. So to get away from that was definitely a huge leap, I think, in the industry. So, for Chuck, how does Chuck differ from some of the other automation and robotic solutions that are out there on the market? What kind of sets you guys apart?
Yeah, when you look at collaborative picking robots, what sets Chuck apart is the dynamic zones that our software manages. And so the difference is, like some buildings, they might have static zones. And if you've got static zones, then your slotting needs to be really good, or otherwise you're going to have people who have nothing to do in certain parts of the day. But with our system and our AI, we manage zones in a dynamic fashion. So you could almost think about hotspots popping off and coming down throughout the day based on what the demand is. And also with dynamic zones, because Chuck is the machine that knows about these zones, it will bring people from one zone into another zone. So as the associate, I really don't need to think if I'm in the right area or not, because Chuck will move those people around. So that's one area, Kevin. The second area is how we've thought about the actual size of our robot, where it's much bigger than a lot of other picking robots. And so if you've got a bigger robot, it means you can put more products onto it. If you can put more products onto a robot, it means you need less robots in your building. If you need less robots in your building, then you don't need to worry about congestion as much, which allows you then to be able to go and actually service the entire, each picking operation in a building, rather than it needing to be carved out into smaller segments.
Yeah, I did notice when I was looking at the pictures of Chuck how the surface area on top of it seems much larger than some of the other ones I've seen. The surface area, and also we try to make it very modular, where you can have different types and sizes of containers, and you can even put kind of grid-like infrastructure onto it as well if you'd prefer to be able to horizontally put place items into a grid rather than place items into a box.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, interesting. So how has the reception, I guess, been? So as you guys are implementing these, so you guys have been around since 2015, so I'm sure you have a couple of implementations under your belt. How has the reception from, I guess, the floor level employees been as they start to learn to work with these collaborative robots?
It's been one of the funnest parts of the job to see so far. So I visited one of our customers in Orlando a few weeks back. And while I was there, I heard from the DC manager. She was telling me how she's got associates from different parts of the building, from bulk and receiving, come over to her asking when they can go and get picking with Chuck. But I was walking out of the building, getting in my Uber, and one of the associates who I had seen working with Chuck during the day, he was on the phone, and you could tell he was talking to his family. And I heard him say over the phone that he got to pick with Chuck today. And he was very happy about it. And as I was thinking about it, it's a pretty cool experience to, it's tough. It's a tough job being an associate in a warehouse. you're walking a lot. It can be very hot. It can be very cold. But now you have this chance to work with some of the newest technology in the world, and it's a pretty cool thing to be able to go home to your family and be able to tell them the type of technology that that your dad is working with or that your mom is working with. And I can see as well that it could lead like to inspiration in their kids as well, when kind of how to maybe kind of get them thinking about opportunities to go and actually be able to figure out how to build this infrastructure and work in a high-tech job as they go through their education.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great story and great feedback on that, because I think a lot of people, they get very maybe nervous or scared when they hear that robots are coming in and stuff, and they think that the robots are gonna take everybody's job. But I think companies like Six River, you guys are working on these collaborative robots, and I think there's some misinterpretation there when we say robotics in general, right? Because we really are making these. I say we, not me. I'm not making robots, but you guys, companies like you guys are making these collaborative robots, and they're really there to help the person's job become easier and more effective and more efficient. And I think that that's going to make a bigger difference. And I'm happy that you could share a story like that where the employees are really excited to work with the robot instead of nervous that they're gonna lose their job because the robot's gonna take their job. So has that always kind of been the mission of Six River, is to have that collaborative effort?
Yeah, we've got 3 design principles, Kevin, that go into everything that we make. But our first design principle is empower the associate. Yeah, so I'm kind of just like touching back on it's not getting rid of people completely, and why associates aren't worried. Because to automate something, like, you need the space to be very predictable, very well laid out. And if you're an associate in a warehouse, like, how unpredictable things are there. So they just know how difficult it would be to remove a person from that job. And then if you really try to remove it, like, just the costs become like so expensive. And so we're building something to empower the associate, but also how we view this new way of automation as well is, like, we want operators to be able to go and make an investment where they can see a 12-month payback. Like we saw with traditional automation that it was only available to the largest companies in the world. Like if you think about goods-to-person systems or shuttle systems, you need it to be a really, really big company to be able to afford that. But now the way we're building warehouse automation is we're making it available to small and mid-sized companies, because like the price points are much lower. You're able to order, purchase, and consume the automation that you need on an on-demand basis. So you don't have to go through months or years of a deployment effort that we talked about earlier on.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the ramp up and the implementation is so simple. I think that's awesome, because I mean, the one thing that's huge now, obviously, Amazon's talking about one-day delivery and stuff, is service level, and any type of disruption to operation is kind of very scary for us that work in distribution and stuff. So the fact that we're able to reduce that and make it more of a simple, I guess, implementation and a quick ramp up is awesome, because a lot of times too, I think that companies think that maybe they can only move to automation or put in some type of solution if they're doing a new building, because they won't be able to bring down their old building, their old operation to get something going. But with this, I mean, it sounds like, do you have a lot of like existing buildings that take on the robot, or is it a lot of new distribution centers? Where do you see it mostly, or is it kind of 50-50?
So funny you should ask this, Kevin. So another of our design principles is no new infrastructure. And
okay.
yeah, so we most companies can't afford to go rip out everything that they have to bring in new automation. So we want our customers to be able to keep the shelving or the racking, the layouts that they already have. We don't force our customers to overlay the entire building with Wi-Fi. Like we just need them to have Wi-Fi in one pocket of the workflow. So all of our customers today, so like we've went into existing buildings, and like that is the sweet spot for us. They've been buildings where the associate was using a cart, either with paper or supplemented with voice, and then we bring in chalk and we bring in our AI, which they see, depending on where they were to begin with, like they see anything from 3x improvements and up if it was a cart with paper, and then if it was a cart maybe with a headset and voice picking, they see roughly 2x improvements. And this is 2x improvements in pick rate and throughput.
Wow. So I promise that I didn't read the design principles before this. I just happened to be hitting them all, I guess. So, I thought that the other solution that you guys have is a mobile sort solution. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and how is that working alongside with Chuck, or is that a separate solution in itself?
It's a solution that works alongside Chuck. So it's a solution that allows Chuck to be used in bigger buildings with more volume, particularly buildings that have a high mean to peak burst. And so if you think about a building and you're picking during your average time of year, and if you've got a huge burst, that it could get too congested if the answer to being able to get more throughput out of there is to add more and more robots. So with Chuck alongside the mobile sort wall, it allows the building to be able to pick batches, and then those batches will go to a mobile sort station to be singulated. And different, and I'm going to bring in our third design principle here, and we only have 3, so we've covered all of them. Different to your traditional put walls where they could be bolted into the ground. Our mobile sort is on wheels. So you bring them into the building and take them out of the building, or you move them around the building based on demand through the year. And so our that design principle that we have is flexibility above productivity. So when we're engineering products, we will always prioritize flexibility over productivity, because we found that the more you prioritize productivity, then the less flexible a solution becomes, which means you end up with steel and motors bolted into the ground. And if your business changes or if your product size changes, well, you're stuck with what you built, and you still need to keep that in the building because you haven't reached payback yet.
Interesting. I like that. So, yeah, because it actually reminds me of an operation I used to work in, where that would have been like a perfect solution, because we were a book publisher, but we had a huge, when calendars came out, it was a huge rush. And we would set up mobile stations, but in this case we had tons and tons of conveyor, and we would set up folding tables basically, and have them batch picked and then sort them all out on the folding table. But like this would have been the perfect solution for that. And definitely, I love that it's on wheels. It's like very lean because of the flexibility and the ability to move it whenever you need to move it. And I think the way that it would work with Chuck, it sounds that it would really be ideal for, like you said, like those high peak points where you're hitting a lot of stuff and you're getting a lot of hits on certain products. That's really interesting. So do you guys have any other solutions besides this? Or are you guys working on anything for the future?
Yeah, we are. So we're always working on making improvements to our chuck. One of the beautiful things about this new way of automation, where you've got robots and software, is with software advances, you're actually able to, and we promise efficiency improvements to our customers just from software upgrades. The only material handling product that can get better over time. So unlike a conveyor, where it could break, it would start to rust, or belts get weaker and need to be replaced. With robot software, you can put in software improvements, and it makes the system better.
Interesting. And is that all done, I guess, through the cloud as well,
right? Yes, it is.
Interesting. So I guess you touched on something interesting. So talk about conveyors, and obviously, if you have any type of conveyors, that preventative maintenance is key. So we're talking about the software component. So what type of, I guess, upkeep and maintenance is there with the hardware part of chuck, like the physical, I guess, body of chuck?
Yeah. So there's a lot of components in it that are similar to components in an automated vehicle. One thing is you want to wipe them down every now and again, because warehouses can be dusty, so you don't want the sensor being blocked. Yeah. As we learn about different issues that can pop up, we do certain types of preventative maintenance. We learn as well as associates are interacting with the robots, kind of where LEDs might start to break down first, so that we can go across the fleet and get ahead of that. But also we use software as well to monitor the health of each robot. And so just like with car diagnostics, when our diagnostic on the chuck sees that there's an issue or a potential future issue with a component, that we can get ahead of it and either go and send somebody to the building to do a replacement, or even now we're starting to do hot swaps, where we will send a replacement out to our customer. Their chuck will get sent to a location. We do the maintenance on it, but their operation hasn't been impacted at all, because we're giving them a chuck so that they can keep working at that same rate while we're doing the maintenance on the other one.
And then because of the map that Chuck can just easily download, it makes it very, very easy to put in a different one, right?
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, great. So what do you see, I guess, as, in the industry as a whole? Obviously, we were at ProMat, and, so much now is about robotics and automation, and, how can we automate this and how can we automate that? What do you think? And I guess, what is maybe your personal view or Six Rivers' view of what the future is for automation and robotics in our industry?
It's such an exciting time to be in the space. We're benefiting now from advances in hardware, where sensors have gotten cheaper, have gotten smaller. We're benefiting from computing power being more affordable, being available to everybody. We're benefiting also from just efforts in the robotics community, where there's platforms like ROS. So different open source projects that are allowing technologists to be able to go and build things quicker than way before. So I still see there's going to be a lot of focus on this area. There's a lot of opportunity, and just with continued growth in e-commerce, with the size of stores, I think, continuing to shrink, possibly with the reuse of old malls at the edge of towns being used now for mini fulfillment centers. that it's a great time to be in this industry.
Definitely, yeah. I think some of the things at ProMat I saw and Automate too on the other side was pretty incredible, and I think the industry is just heading in a really exciting time, and I think that's something too that some people don't realize because they think of distribution and fulfillment like there's this concrete box with cardboard boxes inside it, like what's exciting about that? But with stuff like Chuck, it's like makes it so cool, and I think it's only going to get cooler from here, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what companies do, especially Six Rivers as well, in the future. What do you think for people, I guess, that are listening and they don't have any automation in their operation yet? What would you advise them on, I guess, as their first step into starting to think about automation and starting to possibly bring, some type of robot like Chuck into their operation? What kind of advice would you give them, and what kind of steps do you think they should take?
With collaborative robots, it's very easy and low risk to go try it out. Mm-hmm. It's time for operators to seriously go and take a project and go and do the implementation, because we're seeing that now it's going beyond just early adopters who are rolling this out. That now our customers are rolling out 2 or 3 buildings immediately with Chuck, whereas 2 years ago we would see them want to try 8 robots in a small part of the building. And so your competitors and your peers are doing this now, and they're doing it because they can see they can get a competitive advantage, both in terms of getting more out of the building, but also like just helping to meet customer expectations. And so, as I said, your competitors and peers are doing something now, and so if you're not seriously investigating a project, you should start to look into this.
Definitely. So I think that's a really good information, and the fact that you just said that customers are rolling out 2 or 3 buildings at the same time as opposed to doing a small test, I think shows the confidence that's growing in the industry with the technology. I think that just kind of proves that this is the future, and this is here to stay. It's not like not a fad or anything, and it's definitely as you said from the numbers, it's definitely improving efficiency and having an overall impact on the industry. So if people want to find out more about Six River Systems, how can they do that?
Visit our website, the number 6river.com.
All right. Fergal, anything else that we should know about Six River Systems?
No, Kevin, thank you for the time today. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for joining me on the New Warehouse podcast, and we'll have more information posted about this episode and Six River Systems on our blog at thenewwarehouse.com. Thanks again, Fergal.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.